Thank you for coming in today for an interview for a second grade position here at Bama. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the school. We are a K through 5 school. We have about approximately 795 students here, with the demographics of 60% African American and 30% Hispanic. So we do have a large bilingual population here. We have about 6 classes on each grade level. And being that this is for a second grade position, you will be self contained.
Okay.
And that's about it. So we're going to jump right into the interview.
All right.
You will see me writing. I'm just going to be jotting down your answers.
No problem.
All right. So, if you could provide me an example when you adapted your teaching methods or instructional materials to meet your students' various needs and interests.
Okay. Well, I remember a time I was teaching the water cycle
Mm-hmm.
and just going through the steps, and I noticed the children were having a hard time trying to put them together, and they were with the understanding. So I kind of stepped back and I allowed them to draw, show them pictures, and then I allowed them to actually be able to draw. And we kind of made little simulations of the water cycle just so they can have that real world experience and they could see it, and then I was able to go into the actual teaching of it.
Okay. Could you tell me about a time when you had to tell a parent that a child was not progressing, and how did that go?
Sometimes, the parents don't quite understand, or may not quite think the level, or they believe the level that their kids are on may not be the actual level that they're there. So this particular instance, the parent thought the kid should have been performing higher than what the kid was actually doing. So I just spoke with the parent. I showed the parent the student's work so that they could see, what the issue was. They were not really happy about it, but then I also talked to them about tutoring the kid, the student after school, and small groups, so different ways that even though the kid was not progressing as they wanted them to do, the various ways that we can make sure we pull the kid up to the level that they should have been on.
And staying on that same topic, was there ever a time when the parent was a little bit irate when you told them that, and how did you handle that situation?
So you have to be really sympathetic because you are dealing with a person's child. So sympathetic to that person's feelings and just let them know that you understand their frustration, but your job is to help and to, just reassure them that you as that kid's teacher will do everything possible to make sure that the kid, performs where they should be performing.
Okay. What do you see as the key to maintaining order in the classroom?
So the first thing you have to have is a relationship with the students. So you build those relationships and positive relationships. And so when it's time to, maintain that order, you make sure that your rules are consistent and fair, and that the students understand why they are receiving the consequence. And so if you have that relationship with the kids and you are consistent in implementing those rules, I think everything should be okay.
Okay. We're going to talk about lesson plans and work. Tell me about how you would go about creating those.
So the first thing when I do when I'm creating my lesson plans is I look at the T and I look at the verb, and that verb or the T tells you how far into the lesson that you need to go. So you analyze your verb in the T, and then you break that down, and you can see how it is that you need to teach that particular lesson, and then you make sure that your activities are aligned to your T, and that your lessons are also engaging for the students, hands-on, or just make sure they fit whatever the verb is for your T.
Yes. Being that this is for a second grade position, and we know that lecturing may not always work for second grade, can you tell me about a time when you used a different method besides lecturing?
So a lot of times you can do field experiences, and that's something as simple as taking the students outside. For example, we teach about habitat. So you take the kids outside so they can see, maybe a different type of habitat. Maybe they didn't even know, the outside surrounding wasn't a habitat. So you can go out there and show them the different things so they can be able to see it instead of just listening to you talk about it.
Okay. Now you did in your resume. I did see that you said this is your 20th year teaching,
Yes,
and so I know within those years, one of those years, at least you've been a teacher mentor.
I have.
And what did you mentor them on? And did you see any growth? How did you pick what you were going to mentor them on?
So, as I was when I was mentoring, we worked on building the capacity on the teachers. So we worked on making sure they knew how to write effective lesson plans, making sure that they were able to effectively manage the classroom for classroom behavior issues. So just making sure that I was there to coach them through. If I needed to model maybe an effective teaching strategy, instructional strategy, I was able to do that. So and then the improvements that you saw was not only the teacher being able to get into the classroom and effortlessly move through the lesson, but you also saw the increase in student scores for achievement.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you tailored your instructions to fit the needs of your students?
So I noticed that I had a student that had a low reading level. So for that student, I had to just kind of differentiate my lesson for him, and just started low and just worked my way up with building the reading level. I met him where he was, and then as the school year went through, we kind of increased that rigor, so that way he didn't get frustrated. We just kind of moved at his pace.
Okay. So here you will be working with a large team. Like I said, we do have 6 teachers on the grade level, and some of your coworkers may not always be happy about a decision that's being made. How would you deal with a coworker that's disgruntled or unhappy about either something at work or they came with the baggage from home?
Well, the first thing you do is you don't take it personal. Everybody has issues and things that they're dealing with, so you don't take it personal. You just let the team member know that you're there. You kind of focus on building relationship with that person, so that person can feel safe coming to you if they have a problem, or better able to express him or herself if an issue arises.
Okay. What are some long-range career goals that you have developed for yourself, and how have you went about achieving them?
So one goal is to become a principal, and so we teach the kids about education. So I have to let them see that even though I am a teacher, I still have lifelong learning goals. So I let them know I'm back in school and I'm working on my principal certification, just to let them know the learning does not end. You're constantly learning.
Okay. How would you use technology in your classroom?
So we have virtual labs sometimes for the kids to see, and where they can sit at the computers and go through the process. We also have flipped classrooms where they can watch at home and then come back to class with some knowledge. I have iPads, and I use the iPads and the computers to help with my small group and my remediation lessons.
So we know that data is important. How would you use data in your classroom, and how have you used it in the previous
So
years?
we know that data drives instruction. So we always have to analyze the data, and we look at the trends, and then we use that information to make small groups, to make reteach lessons. So we just use that to make sure that we are on track, the kids are learning, and if not, then we monitor and adjust as needed.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you were able to prevent a problem because you foresaw it coming with the student?
A part of that is having a relationship with the kids and knowing their personalities, their different personalities. So you can kind of look at a kid and know if they're having a good day or if they're having a bad day. So being able to have that relationship and knowing if something is a little off and being able to be proactive. Hey, I see you use yourself, you're not smiling, anything's wrong, but just letting the kid know that you're there, and that way, kind of calm them down and where they're ready mentally to continue on with the day.
Okay. What have you found to be the best way to monitor the performance of your work and the work of your students?
So always tracking the data. So I track my data for my classes, and I also allow the students to track their data. So that way they can see how they're performing, and I can see if all of the kids across the board perform low on the teeth, then I know that that's an instructional issue that I had, so that's something for me to go back and have to reteach. But just so me and then the kids knowing how to do it, so they'll know how they are performing as well.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you, presented to a group, and what was the situation, and what was the topic, and how did it go?
So we presented again about data, because data is a big piece, instructional component for your classes. So we presented at a faculty meeting about data, to let the faculty know the importance of data, how data can be used in the classroom, and how it can just drive your instruction.
Okay, thank you. Tell me, give me an example of a time when you demonstrated excellent listening skills, and what was the situation and the outcome?
So I did have a team member that was really upset, and it had to do with an issue that she was experiencing at home. And so she just really needed somebody to talk to. And so I just let her know that I was there. I actively listened to, what was happening, kind of removed her from the situation in the classroom, so that she can just kind of get her head together. And just let her know that I was there for her, for whatever she needed, to calm her down so she was able to teach for the students.
Okay. Today for an interview. You have my contact information. I will be in contact in the earlier part of the week with an answer, whether it be good or bad. I have a few more interviews to do, and then I'll get back with you. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I want to know about your POCs and how often you have them.
We have PLCs twice a week. It's during your conference time. You will have conference 5 days a week, but 2 days are set for PLCs. PLCs, one meeting is for planning, where you'll collaborate with your coworkers, your teachers on your team, and plan for the next week. The next time you meet, you'll have learning, where you do some ad-bads, present to your team, let them give you some feedback on the changes you could make. And then the C would be a collaborative data meeting, where you would just meet with your team, go over some trends of your work and how you can improve, maybe pull in small groups, or just get some feedback from them.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
It's just a minute.
Preliminary, thank you for coming in to interview for a second grade position. I'll tell you a little bit about our school. The enrollment currently is 795. We are a K-5 school. The demographics were about 60% African American, and the rest, the 40 being Hispanic. So we do have a large bilingual population here at Bama. We have 6 classes on each grade level, 5 being EL and 1 being bilingual classes. So we're going to just jump right in with the questions. You will see me writing your answers, perfectly normal. Don't be nervous and just answer. Thank you. Okay, so can you tell me about a time when you adapted your teaching methods or instructional materials to meet your students' needs?
Yes. At one point in second grade, I had the GT class, the lower class, and RTI, and some SPED mixed in. So during that time, I had to adjust and adapt the curriculum and what I was doing with those particular students. So I used a lot of small group instruction and guided reading to make sure that each child was getting their needs met.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you had to tell a parent about their child not progressing, and how did you go about doing that?
Oh, I'm a big advocate for teacher-parent conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So there were multiple times I had to do it, but the one time that sticks out to me was when a young girl was not making the progress she needed, and I felt that she needed to be retained.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a good little girl, but the mom struggled. So what I did is I had a personal meeting with her. We sat down, we talked, and I was there for her. I let her cry, I held her in my arms, and it was what was best for her daughter, because the next year she was a straight A student.
Did you ever have a time when the parent didn't take it so well, maybe became irate? And
Oh,
how did
yes.
you handle that?
Well, first, if a parent becomes irate, my first step is to stop the conversation and say, I understand how you feel. but we need to have somebody here so that we can have a consistent, unbiased opinion. So I would therefore say, I'm sorry, we cannot discuss this. And I will say that we can set up a meeting with the principal or vice principal or even the counselor so that we're all together in the situation.
What do you see the key to maintaining order in your classroom?
Of consistency, using the TLAC strategies that our district has been provided with, making sure that we are organized and willing to learn and willing to change and willing to be present at your school, after school, whatever it be, just being present.
Okay, tell me about how you go about creating your lesson plans.
Well, again, right now, before Pearson, I would have to pull from different resources and things like that. So now what I do is I look at the needs of my kids. I teach small group. So for example, my guided reading groups, I would look at that level of kids. I look at what their needs are, and I use a checklist to see what they're doing and they're capable of. And then what I would do is go to the guided reading room, put books that are individualized for each student. Then when I think of my whole group lesson, I think of strategies that will engage all the students and different movement strategies and think pair shares and as much as I can do to get the kids engaged. This year I plan on using the habits of discussion and incorporating that into my classroom.
Great. Can you tell me about, well, we know this interview is for a second grade position, and lecturing may not work all the time.
Oh no.
For second, can you tell me about the time you use the method other than lecturing?
Absolutely. I do a lot of small groups where they work cooperatively. So I may do, let's say, a guided reading lesson, or not a guided reading, a read aloud, and then we'll break up into sections where the kids get to work cooperatively, and I can visit each group and make sure that they're doing that. There's also time for individualized instruction. So I absolutely believe in not just sitting and giving. It's not a sit and get. It's a let's get interactive with it. Let's move around. Let's act it out. Those kinds of things.
As I was looking over your resume, I saw that you've been teaching for 18 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I know within that time you've coached or mentored someone. Can you talk about what you coached them on, how you went about choosing what to coach them on, and how did that turn out?
Well, I have recently been able to be the literacy coach at my campus, and out of those 18 years, I was also a mentor, and I've been a team lead. But the most coaching I've done is this year, and some things that I've coached them on is in kindergarten, interacting with the kindergarten team, with following the components of literacy, and really building up those components and starting small group instruction immediately. So that's what we worked on. Is that what your question was?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's great. Can you tell me about a time when you tailored your instruction to fit the needs of the students in your class?
As I said before, like if there was a child that was working below grade, which there was, oftentimes I had non-readers. So with that case, I would find something that we could do either with me, or I'd partner them up and they can talk, or I would adapt the stations so that each of those kids felt successful. So I would maybe have a red folder for the high kids, a blue folder for the middle kids, and a green for the low with different activities. And then the kids didn't know what that stood for, but they each got a dot, and that's where they would go pull from.
Okay. As I told you, we do have 6 classes on our campus per grade level, so it is a big grade level. So you will deal with multiple personalities. So how would you deal with a coworker who comes in with baggage? Maybe they're irate with something that happened at home, or they were not happy with something happened in school, and they came to you with that. How would you deal with that coworker?
Well, I've always been taught to listen first, and try not to respond or give advice. Just be there to listen, because sometimes people just need to let it out. And then, of course, with the school situation, I would tell that person to go to the source and solve it, instead of continuing to talk to other people, because that's not going to get us anywhere. You know, she's just going to continue, he or she would continue to make them look bad. As far as family life, sometimes we do come, you know, it's normal for people to come but I think just being a good teammate and listening, and then maybe setting the tone for, well, today this is what we can do, and reminding her of all the good things that they have.
Okay. Can you tell me about some long-term career goals you have set for yourself, and how did you go about achieving those? If you have not achieved them, or how are you going to start achieving them?
Okay. Well, last year, like I told you, I applied for literacy coach, and I've been doing that. Then during my time period with literacy coach, I have developed a want and a desire to go back to school to get my master's. So I'm in the process of my application now, and I've also explored different areas in spring for leadership.
Okay. How would you use technology in your classroom?
Well, we have individualized Chromebooks, so I would definitely be using that and using different programs like iStation or what have you. I would also use that in Station Group, and I use the document camera. But other than that, I've used the smart board and stuff like that, but I'm just not real comfortable. I'll be honest. I'm more comfortable with the document camera.
Okay. How would you use data?
Oh, how do you not use data? I would use it to drive my instruction and to drive my students' needs and figure out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and I would also utilize that data to talk to parents about what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay. What is your highest priority in your classroom?
It would be relationships, because you have to have that in order for the academic to come, the behavior, all of that. It's all about how you build that relationship with those kids.
Okay. Tell me about a time when you were able to prevent a behavior from a student because you foresaw it already coming in. What happened with that?
My little Randall was one of my students, and he came in from a very dysfunctional family. Came in rambunctious, all get out. That kid that you just. But I loved him. So we started off with short-term behavior goals, and so what we did is we gave him one thing to focus on, and we would give sticker rewards and consistently praise, and use "I like when" instead of stop doing that, because that's not going to work with this child. I also would take him to the side, have him near me, so that he would still have that attention. And then we eventually worked up to 2 or 3 goals with behavior, and it got to a point where we didn't need the behavior. We were able to move forward and do well.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you presented to a group, and what was the situation, what was the topic, and how did that go?
Oh, this year we have been training on the teachers on TLAC. And throughout the year, I've had some other trainings that I've done to teachers, flipped classroom, Marzano training. I'm sorry. Okay, Marzano training and what have you. So the TLAC, what we worked on, that's Teach Like a Champion. I had a role in where I taught one part of it, and my team members, each of us had our own part, and it was really nice because we each gave our own personality. Then one day, 2 of our members fell short and were sick, so we had to step up real fast and divide it out, and it was just really nice for us to build as a team like that.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you yourself had to demonstrate great listening skills?
All year with coaching, basically. Just even with parents too, like they come in and they have their job, this, that, and we just need to sit there and listen and get their perspective and understand where they're coming from. Like, seek to understand before you judge anything.
Okay. Can you tell me about a time when you taught something that you felt maybe difficult for the students? And how did you get that approach? How did you achieve mastery?
Okay, I have a funny story. So I was teaching subtraction in 2nd grade with the base 10 blocks, and I was doing it completely wrong. I had both numbers up, and the children were looking at me like, what is she doing? So then what I did is I was trying to figure it out, and my math coach, Miss Hoppus, just happened to be walking by, and I'm like, help me! And I'm very vulnerable and real with my kids. So once we did it, they got it, and I was able, once I got it, we were able to really work through it. And so we used a lot of manipulatives. Then some kids wanted to draw, so we would draw. Some kids wanted to put different materials out, so I did as much as I could to make sure they got that skill.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming in today to interview
Thank
for
you.
the position at Bama. I will be in contact in the earlier part of next week.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
I don't believe so. I'm a little worried that I may not get this. Do you think there's a chance?
I think you are a strong candidate. I
Okay.
really do. But I will definitely let you know one way or another.
Okay.
If you think of anything, you have my email and
Okay.
my direct contact, my
Okay.
phone number. And you can call me and let me know. And I
Okay.
look forward to
Okay.
working with
Thank you,
Thank
Ms. Russell.
you. You are really good. Thank you for coming in today to interview for the second grade position at Bama Elementary. Currently at Bama, our enrollment is $795 with 60% African Americans and 30% Hispanic. Um, so we're gonna jump right in if you don't mind.
No problem.
All right.
Excited to be here.
Great, thank you. So, can you tell me about a time when you adapted your teaching methods or instructional materials to meet the needs of the various levels of students in your classroom?
On a daily, I adapt to meet the needs.
And I'm just gonna write.
Oh, no problem. Take your time.
Mm-hmm.
Daily, I adapt to meet the needs of all of my students. Coming from primary grade levels, all the students aren't on the same grade level, especially in the younger years. You find that students are below grade, above grade. It's a real mixture in early childhood. So daily, I make the adaptations to make sure that my students are successful.
Thank you. Can you tell me about a time when you had a parent that either the child was not progressing or they were progressing? And how did you inform that parent?
Well, you know what? It's very important to keep parents in the loop when it comes to their child's academics. So you need to send home the children's weekly work, which consists of their daily assignments. If you're sending home several, low grades, then the parents kind of have an idea. Most times parents will reach out and ask what can be done because they've seen several assignments with low grades. But then sometimes, you have parents who might not equate those low grades to an overall low average on the report card or recognize that there's an academic need there. So then you do need to reach out. You reach out, you first ask the parents if they've seen the assignments. Some students are very clever. The parents didn't even see the assignment because they knew they were going to get in trouble. But you just cannot depend on the work that you send home to get to the parent for the parent to know. So you reach out, you ask them if they've seen it. If they haven't seen it, you explain it to them. If they have seen it, then you set up a meeting just so you can have a face-to-face so they can better understand.
Thank you. So, as we know, classroom and behavior management are the keys to success. But can you tell me, what do you see as being the major key in an order in the classroom?
A major key
to maintain order.
Building relationships with the students. I know many people say it, very few do it, but building relationships with the students, there has to be a happy balance of having a respectful relationship with the students, and then at the same time letting the students know that you're there for them, not necessarily their friend, but that you're there for them. If they need to talk to you, they can talk to you. If they share some things, that they know that they can gain their trust. So at the same time, when they have to be redirected, they'll know that it's coming from a good place. You're just not the mean, grumpy, grouchy teacher, always wanting to call the house, but you have to build the relationships with the kids.
Okay. So, planning is a big aspect of a successful lesson. Tell me about how you would go about creating your lesson plans.
To create my lesson plans, first off, I'd find out from the school if there was a common lesson plan template that was used. If there was, I would make sure that all the components that needed to be filled in on that lesson plan were filled in. And then depending on the size of my team and what other teachers taught the same subjects as myself, I would plan as a group, especially in the beginning, so I can get an idea of the culture, the team dynamic, what everyone else on the team was teaching, just so we could stay on the same track at the same time. And then once I got comfortable, once I understood, the expectations of lesson plans, I wouldn't necessarily have to write out my lesson plan with the team, but we would definitely meet so we were on the same page of what was going to be on the lesson plan. To be honest with you, I really, really dislike splitting up lesson plans and someone coming and sending them Sunday at 11 o'clock and I'm expected to read it Monday at 7:30 and know what's going on. So we would definitely meet as a team beforehand, type up the plan before the weekend, let people proofread, let people go over it in their minds.
So you said that you dislike splitting up the plans,
Oh yes.
and why is that?
I just like because when you split up the plans, you have one teacher who is really strong in social studies, one teacher is really strong in language arts, one teacher is really strong in math. Because you did say that second grade was self-contained, right?
Yeah, it
right.
is, yes.
So I don't like splitting up the plans in the sense that you're just doing social studies all year, you're just doing language arts all year, you're just doing math all year, because I'm not just doing math all year, I'm doing all the core subjects. So we can rotate, we can split it up, but we can rotate on writing different parts of the plans. But it's really, really imperative that we meet. We might write and type it up, but once we met, we all had a part in what was going to be on the plan. So when someone types it up, it's not just their plan, and you don't see it for the first time until you get the lesson plan. You all discussed. They just literally did the typing, but everything that was going to be done in class, the assignments, we were made aware of through planning. So.
Okay. As you are aware of, there are different types of strategies to successfully meet the needs of the learners in their room. Can you tell me about another method that you use besides lecturing?
Oh yes, early childhood is extremely important. Second grade is like straddling the fence between primary and going into intermediate, but hands-on is still important. I not a big fan of worksheets, but I know the STAR test comes in the form of a booklet. It's just one thick worksheet, but I don't believe that students learn best with worksheets. So hands-on, making our own assignments, foldables, projects. I like to get the students to be able to work and produce a product without them realizing that they're working and learning.
Okay. Let's talk about organizing your week. Tell me how you organize, plan, and what you prioritize during your week.
My priority during the week is making it through the week. I'm just kidding. My priority during the week is making sure that I start off my week prepared for Monday through Friday. I never want to be the teacher. I never have been the teacher that is looking for the copy room lady on Tuesday because I need something for Tuesday. I've never been the teacher that didn't have all of their assignments laid out on the back table. If you or the assistant principal came through and you actually want to see what it was that my students were working on, there are probably extras on the back that you can come in the back, you can pick it up, you can read it, you can go around and you can see how they were answering it. So my main priority is being prepared. Having an idea from previous planning about lesson plans, and then making sure that my students in the week knowing something that they didn't know at the beginning of the week.
Okay. So imagine that you had a parent that came in irate, fussing, cursing about something that happened the previous day in your classroom. How would you handle that situation?
About something that happened previously
In the classroom that really was kind of almost out of your control, but the parent felt you were responsible for whatever happened, and she was very irate.
Well, first off, I would have to hear what it was that she was upset about. Then, after listening to what she was upset about, hopefully, excuse me,
No problem.
I could provide clarity on what the situation was, because I found that a lot of times parents are really upset or irate, but it's one-sided, and it's the side that their child told and not every student is very honest and forthcoming with their parent about the part that they played. So once I was able to gain clarity on why the parent was upset, then I could explain the whole story, both sides. And sometimes that helped the parents to see, oh, it wasn't what I thought, or it wasn't what my child told me. Or there are cases where the student is still upset. Then I would have to work with the parent on finding a conclusion. What can be done going forward? Nothing can change what happened, but what can be done going forward to make sure that X, Y, and Z doesn't happen again.
Thank you. And what about a coworker that came in maybe with some baggage, was not pleased about her evaluation, or was not happy with the principal, and a non-negotiable that she brought in, and she was very irate with you, not easy to work with? How would you handle that?
You know what? At the end of the day, being an educator, my primary focus is what's going on in my classroom, but being very well aware that what goes on outside of the classroom, what goes on in the other teachers' classrooms, affects my classroom. If I didn't have to necessarily interact with that coworker when they were in that mood that they were in, I wouldn't. I definitely would not engage them in anything that they wanted to say that was negative, or might have a negative effect, or might have a bad consequence, because in my opinion, your business is your business, and you're not going to drag me down with you. And it depends on the person. I know that if being happy and upbeat and showing them the brighter side, if that would help them to get out their funk, or realize, oh, I can change this, so I can work on that, I would do it. But you have to be able to read people. If me talking to that person is only going to get them more angry and grumpier and turn into Facebook to vent, then I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and be professional.
Okay. Can you tell me about how you use technology in your class?
To be honest, I'm not as technologically savvy as the students. I know the basics.
Yeah.
I know how to work the computer, I know how to work the iPads. But I am getting into a lot of PDs where you can incorporate technology in the classroom for students interacting with children outside of their city, their state, their country. Pen pals, but not necessarily paper pencil pen pals, but I think it's just more effective where you can see the students, kind of like FaceTime for the whole class. So I'm taking a lot of PDs on how to incorporate that in my classroom.
I heard you say you're taking a lot of PDs. Do you go find them yourself, or do you only rely on the PDs the school offers or the principal may find for you?
Oh no, I go and find them myself. Actually, I get several emails a day from different companies, different region fours. When you go to PDs and you write your name down and you write your email address down, they always want to sell you something, or they always want to get you out to see something. So I just really enjoy going to PDs, especially in the summertime. To be honest, that's like how I spend like 90% of my summer.
So how do you use data in your classroom?
We all know that data drives instruction. I won't know how to teach or what to teach my students if I don't know what they already know. Even though they're little people, just like adults, their pet peeve is somebody telling them something that they already know. But how will I know if they know it or not if I'm not keeping data, if I'm not keeping track of data? How am I going to know if they're being successful or not if I don't keep track of the data? I might think that I'm doing the world's best teaching job and my students are going backwards in something. So data helps me to monitor my students.
Okay. Provide an example when you're able to prevent a problem because you first saw the reaction of another student.
Oh, well, it's very easy. In primary, luckily, most students wear their emotions on their sleeves, so you can kind of gauge when a student is becoming irritated or agitated before the student who is doing the agitating does. So you're able to intervene. You just have to make sure that you're aware of everything that's going on in your classroom, but you can kind of see the look on so-and-so's face before you see the other student recognize the look, so you can tell the other student, please stop. It doesn't look like they like that. And then you don't want to speak for the student, so you have to ask the student, do you want them to stop? And if they say yes, you have to equip them with a voice. Well, they're only going to know to stop when you tell them to stop. So it's just about being very, very mindful when it comes to kids.
Looking over your resume, I see that you have an extensive. You've been teaching a long time, pretty much. Have you ever been a teacher mentor or coached a new teacher?
No.
Oh, okay. If you were, what would you coach them on? What do you think is important for new teachers to know?
I think it's important for new teachers to education to know the school year's long. The tortoise wins the race. There will be sleepless nights in the beginning, but not to stress. It's a very, very long school year. Your students may not understand like you want them to understand, but it's kind of like losing weight. You work really, really hard and you don't see any results, and you think that nothing's happening. And then one day you're like, oh, I do look different. You will see the light bulbs go on. And as a new teacher, you also need to understand that every student that you teach, you are not going to actually be able to witness the aha, the breakthrough moment, but just know that if you give your all, that they will get it. They might not get it that year in your classroom, but they will get it. So don't get that. Don't think that you're not being effective.
Okay.
Unless you're not being effective, then.
Have you ever presented to a group, whether it's just your team or a group of colleagues or a group of parents?
I present to my team weekly when we're doing lesson plans. If somebody has a suggestion or somebody says to teach something like this and someone doesn't understand, then it's really important to model. So you treat your team like they're the students, and you would model how they should be saying it or how it should be done. So I've done that type of presenting.
Okay. How do you create your long-range goals for your students throughout the year?
Using the data, I have to make sure that the goals are attainable. If I have a student that comes in who is a non-reader, I cannot set the same goals for them as I set for somebody who's reading above grade level. So goals should be set individually based on where the student is. Is this the end of the interview? Oh.
I was
You can
giving.
run and
I
do
don't